I had my parents, but I grew up with my elder sister. For me, as a kid, every kid needs like a good life, but it was not good, not so bad. It was like I can't get everything I wanted, as a child. Because my sister, she was like struggling with her life, She was like my mom, she was like a father to me, she was like everything. So by the time she passed away, that's my life starts. So I married when I was young. We got 2 children, daughter. I was young. I didn't know what to do. I thought maybe I would get better. Even me, I thought like that. It wasn't a good choice to me.
Let's be brutally honest. If nearly half of our population are subject to acute gender-based violence and are disenfranchised from adequate economic activity, then how exactly will we attain full economic development? If over half of our society's individuals have little or no access to political recourse or engagement at the decision-making tables, then how do we gain real representation and real solutions for our issues? If the concerns of over 600 million women and girls on our continent remain ignored, then how exactly will Africa develop to reach its full potential? All-inclusive and people-centered growth are fundamental hallmarks of the Constitutive Act of the African Union and its Development Framework for Africa, Agenda 2063. To achieve Africa's development goals, a high standard of living, quality of life and well-being of all citizens, well-educated citizens underpinned by science, technology and innovation, healthy and well-nourished citizens, and transformed economies. To achieve Africa's development goals, the role of women and girls in society needs to be addressed to ensure that in all spheres encompassing political, economic, and social aspects, their lives are radically changed.
It's important for our continent to care for all its resources, its human capital, women and men, and children. This is, after all, in our vision as the African Union. And the Constitutive Act has recognized that we still have challenges on the continent. So it's important as a union to have very clear and loud commitment that we are going to address that.
The desire to ensure that the rights of women and girls are protected and that they have equal representation in society in order to contribute to development are enshrined in the legal frameworks of the African Union, specifically the Protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights on the Rights of Women in Africa and the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. The African Charter on the Rights of Women in Africa, otherwise known as the Maputo Protocol, stipulates the various actions African states need to undertake to combat all forms of discrimination against women and to ensure the rights of women are implemented and protected. All these rights are a part of the African Union Gender Empowerment Framework and are what our African women deserve and want. These rights include the right to dignity, the rights to life, integrity and security of the person, elimination of harmful practices, access to justice and equal protection before the law, right to participation in the political and decision-making process, the right to peace and protection of women in armed conflicts, the right to education and training, economic and social welfare rights, health and reproductive rights, the right to a healthy and sustainable environment, the right to sustainable development, widows' rights, the right to inheritance, special protection of elderly women, and special protection of women with disabilities.
Maputo Protocol is the very first, it's the premier and most comprehensive legal instrument on women's rights anywhere in the world. Maputo Protocol also, has inspired legislation on issues related to financial and economic inclusion for African women. It's really comprehensive. It covers political rights, it covers social rights, it covers environmental rights, it covers cultural rights as well. But more than anything else, as much as it covers cultural rights, it also protects women against harmful cultural and traditional practices. It's our Bill of Rights for African women. It is huge, it is comprehensive. We don't have any like it in the continent.
Key to ensuring the achievement of the economic and social welfare rights of women is the implementation of the African Union Strategy for Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment, GEWE. The strategy proposes measures to address the major social and economic constraints affecting African women in order to achieve full gender equality in all spheres of life, and is underpinned by 4 pillars: maximizing economic outcomes, opportunities and tech e-dividends, dignity, security and resilience, effective laws, policies and institutions, and leadership, voice and visibility.
Within the Directorate, of course, we are mandated to mainstream gender equality and women's empowerment across the African Union Commission, its organs, and the Regional Economic Commissions and specialized technical agencies, overall, I would say the entire African Union. And that, of course, entails that, well, we are on the path that sets us to achieve gender equality across the continent. And that, of course, stems from the Aspiration 6 of Agenda 2063, which talks about an Africa development which is people-driven, more especially centering on the potential of its women and the youth.
Our work is to make sure that the GEWE strategy will help. The gender strategy will help to make sure that we trickle down until we reach the grassroots level, because that is where it is important. When you see women in rural areas where we need leadership at that level, in the agriculture sector, and they are there, they know, they have the knowledge, but we need to support them to play that leadership role.
Women bring around the table a different perspective. So it's all normal to have them mainstreamed in leadership so that the solutions and those who are contributing to the solutions have also women voices there.
For me, I did not educated a lot. When my sister passed away, I had to go back to my parents, but I thought I would go back to school, but I did not. They just told me I need to work so that I can help my young sisters and brothers. And then in that process, they get for me a man to marry. I was surprised and shocked. If I cut my studies, I don't know where I will be, but I think I might be far. Because education is good. Yeah, that's why now I'm working hard so that my kids, they can be educated.
The African Union International Center for Girls and Women Education is a specialized institution of the African Union since 2004. The AU CFA has a big mandate to promote girls and women education in Africa and also mainstream gender equality and equity in different member state national policies on education. There are so many deeper reasons that girls in Africa are still not going to school. Early pregnancies, early marriage, child marriage. When a conflict occurs, or sometimes when the pandemic like COVID-19, when it happened, those who suffer more are girls. School, they are staying at home to take care of the family. They are bringing to market to help the family. And there's sometimes you cannot imagine the number of African girls who are out of school today. There are many, and they cannot go back to school despite the national legislation that's giving them the right to go back to school. But there are so many factors that are there, and unfortunately they cannot enjoy the right to go back to school.
Education of a young girl is a long-term strategy, and making sure that she stays in school is very important. But also we are making sure that the issues at school are well handled, so that their environment is more conducive to her staying in school.
Creating the conducive environment for our girls to maintain in school is equally matched by the necessity to ensure that there are empowering opportunities for our young women after education. Therefore, economic and financial inclusion for our young girls and women remains a cornerstone of the African Union Gender Equality Framework. However, financial inclusion and economic empowerment in and of itself cannot be achieved if women do not have access to business opportunities that ensure sustainable income generation and growth for women-led businesses, as well as industries in which women are key contributors. With the launch of the African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA, the expectations are high as relates to the expanded business prospects for women-led businesses, which will unlock their potential to grow their businesses from micro to macro enterprises. Through the AFCFTA, informal and small enterprises will be integrated into the continental markets. Breaking the barriers these businesses constantly encounter, they will then be able to penetrate more advanced regional and overseas markets. With women estimated to account for 70% of informal cross-border trade in Africa, the opportunity to tap into regional export destinations and use regional markets as stepping stones for expanding into overseas markets is now envisaged.
Majority of cross-border traders are women. So the economy of Africa really rests on the shoulders of those women. If we don't open our borders, if we don't do away with these tariffs that impede them to do their cross-border businesses, why do we need AFCFTA? Why did we have it?
The AFCFTA is basically doing two things. Number one, it increases demand for goods and services. The second thing is that if the women are into production of goods and services, it means an enlarged market for them. So if they were only supplying their domestic market defined by their borders, they can now scale up their production. So that's creating more and more opportunities for both the women and the youth. So you see the AFCFTA is opening up this window for all the women to participate economically.
We talk about, for example, what the women traders are doing. You take CFTA. You know, when you look at, and I say where the cross borders, the women of the Manu River, who are the one maintaining the peace, because what you don't find in Liberia, you can take it from Sierra Leone, or you take it from Guinea. So the African free trade areas will help to integrate more through the women. We have seen where women traders are being the backbone of our economy, you know, informal. But we need to help them to formalize.
We, as African Union, are going to be the first bloc ever to have a protocol on women and youth in trade, dedicated fully to women and youth, looking at all the challenges they are facing with cross-border trade and translating them into commitments that are enforceable by a piece of law. Women are those who are driving buying decisions. So there is no one who is going to make it through this FCFTA and other widening markets if you don't factor in women in mind.
For the African Union, factoring women in mind also translates to addressing issues that equally affect the girl child. The African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child stipulates the rights that must be accorded to all children regardless of gender, including the right to education, the right to health and health services, protection against harmful social and cultural practices, protection of refugee children, special measures of protection for the mentally and physically disabled, and protection from sale, trafficking, and abduction.
Nous avons également un rapporteur thématique contre les violences faites aux enfants, et plus particulièrement la fille, et comme également nous avons le rapporteur spécial par rapport au mariage des enfants et également aux mutilations génitales féminines. Il faut reconnaître que notre comité a entrepris plusieurs études intéressant la l'égalité de genre, et comme également des observations générales par rapport aux droits et au bien-être de la fille. L'agenda 2040 pour les enfants en Afrique revient également sur cet aspect de l'égalité de genre à travers ces 10 aspirations, et comme aussi la journée de l'enfant africain, où chaque année nous choisissons un thème et comme modèle parlant sont plus parlants par rapport à cette problématique.
With Africa's growing youth population expected to make up over 35% of the global demographic in the next 10 years, and with 50% or more of that population being women, the need to address the challenges facing youth and women today, so as to create better opportunities for the future generation, are paramount. In 2019, the African Union launched the 1 Million by 2021 initiative, which aimed to promote opportunities for Africa's youth in education, employment, entrepreneurship, and engagement, with the Women, Gender, and Youth Directorate also coordinating programs and policies regionally and globally.
So we created opportunities for young people between 2019 and 2021, and I'm very happy to tell you that by the end of 2021, and in the spirit of accountability and transparency, we did calculations and we came back to announce that we reached actually 8.7 million young people across the continent. So that was a resounding success, and based on that and bringing on the momentum of that, His Excellency is going to be launching the 1 million next level, which basically takes what we learned from 1 million by 2021 to the next level. In terms of the programs that we implement in the Directorate, we make sure that there's gender parity as well as quotas for young women. So Agenda 2063 and that basically give us the policy basis for the work that we do. Specifically on programs that we run, we have the African Union Youth Volunteer Corps program. The program is to increase employability skills of young people. Every year we do a call, and across the continent we look at the best of the best and we bring them up. They work at the African Union Commission, at UN. That is to increase their employability skills.
Increasing employability skills, financial services, and even legal policy frameworks are the common denominators that will empower our women and girls across the continent, with specific initiatives and strategies now being unlocked by the African Union to build capacity and level opportunities in all these areas.
We launched a couple of months ago an initiative that is speaking to the women and youth inclusion in the finance and economy.
As the African Union Commission recently, and just one of the initiatives of trying to ensure that where we achieve that decade is the African Union Women and Youth Financial and Economic Inclusion Initiative 2030.
So this program is basically about financial and economic inclusion for women and young people. The idea is, if I just use an analogy of a ladder, so this is the ladder of financial inclusion and economic empowerment. There's a number of things that it's a 10-point agenda around the 10 pathways to make sure that women get on the ladder, they stay on the ladder, and they advance on the ladder. This includes opening the market, which is a conversation with the ACFTA. This includes making sure that women have got access to factors of production. This includes financial literacy and a lot of other things, including policies and enabling environment for women and young people to stay on this ladder and advance through the ladder.
It all starts by conducive policies and legal frameworks. We want to engage the policymakers, the regulators and others to make sure that they level the ground for women and youth.
One of the lessons from the 1 million by 2021 is that scale and impact is at the country level. The African Union Commission is at the macro level, and all that we do is policy enabling environment. But if we want to reach a young person or a woman, you need to get down to the national level or to the member state level.
All those are some of the examples showing you that we are not just looking at our member states and asking them to comply with the strategy and the policies and the protocol, but we are also doing our share of duty.
Whereas a lot is to be said about financial and economic inclusion within the African Union's share of duties and responsibilities, there is also a fundamental recognition that the silent pandemic of violence against women and girls on the continent remains a key impediment to the realization of any ambitions for empowerment or equality.
There was the time it started, life started changing. It started treats me bad. The first time it hit me, I was carrying my baby. She was in 8 months. In that place, they even still know me. Some of them who are still there, they can tell you my story.
The rights of women and girls to physical and psychological integrity are often compromised when they are subjected to violence and violations, which often happen in the form of intimate partner violence, harmful traditional practices, early child and forced marriages, poor health services, and sexual violence, including during armed conflict.
When I started my job here at the AU on women, peace and security, only 17 countries have adopted national action plan on women, peace and security. It's not enough to say that women are the one that are in crisis. The women are, the one that impacted their body, impacted when it's so violence against women. Their body being used in the battlefield. The rape is there, you name them. My advocacy work in the field, 30 countries with the women's organization, 30 African countries, but we are not tired. We will make sure that all member states will adopt national action plan on women, peace and security. You take one example, election in Kenya. The previous one, we have seen the violence. So what we did is we create a network which is called the Africa Women Leaders Network, where we are pushing for more representation of women in electoral processes, but being candidate. But we know that they are targeted, and the violence that we have seen, we need to make sure that they are there to prevent, to talk about peace, to be the one in the medium, because they are the majority who will go and elect, but they have their say, to say, let's go and do it through the ballot and not through the bullet. Because leadership matter. Women leadership matter.
The African Union views violence against women and girls as one of the critical impediments to women's realization of their fundamental rights, including the rights to life, human dignity, peace, justice, and social, economic, and political development.
We need a space where women are really empowered, they are capable, they have opportunities, and they have agency. And that for me would mean substantive equality, where everybody in this continent have an opportunity to contribute to the development of the continent. But the way we are moving, the progress is there, but it is very slow. And for me, looking at the synergies between achievement of Agenda 2030 and 2063, a lot has to happen.
African women are entrepreneurs, we know them. Even from the family, they are the ones selling the food, they are the ones, we have that entrepreneurial, in our DNA. What we need more is to make sure that we provide them with the necessary tools. And what we found in our research that we need more women that know how we manage big funds, not the small that we are saying, you know, micro. African women are at the macro, nothing to do with micro. We are at the macro level. So we need to think big.
How do we achieve parity across the board? How do we do it? Develop leaders, female leaders for our society, for our banks, for our manufacturing industries, for our military and police forces. How do we have them lead across all the walks of life? That's something that we want to contribute to, together with other women, and I have no doubt that we are going to succeed and make it a lot easier for our young sisters and our daughters as they will come to take over from us.
Time and time again, through their actions, our girls and women have demonstrated that they are not only leaders and drivers of their communities, but can achieve great heights at regional and global levels. The transformation of the continent will only be realized through long-term strategies that improve the opportunities for women and girls by ensuring their rights are protected and they're empowered economically, socially, and politically to build the Africa we want.
The thing give me like power. I can't let my kids to grow up in the same situation like the way I did. So I have to fight for them. And also give your children opportunity. Don't let them to marry when they're still young. And as you see, I'm still young, I'm not old. Never know, life can change.